It is Thursday, May 13th, 2021, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Greg McMillan, and I'm here tonight with my esteemed co-host, Dave Podner. Hello, David.
Hey, Greg, how's it going?
Oh, it's not going too bad. So I put a little update out a couple of days ago about the fact that this episode is going to be a little late. And I also talked about the audio. So I am recording on my old iPhone XS Max because I'm using my 12 Pro Max for, show notes and whatnot. And so the audio on my end is not going to be as good as Dave's, because Dave's still on his regular setup, and it's hopefully it's going to be just this episode, and then going forward I'll have my new iMac and everything should be back to normal. So apologize for the potentially poor audio.
Well, and honestly, the reason for the delay was on my end because we hate. I don't want to say anything bad against it because we're recording, but we hate Skype. Yes.
It's boy, if something else would come along that was free, we could try it. But for now, we're stuck with it. But anyway, so before we begin, I just want to put a quick note out there to a friend of the show, Shane Mostyn in Australia. He posted on his YouTube channel just a picture of himself with a note saying that he's dealing with some health issues right now. So he's very optimistic that he's going to get through it, no problem. And what it is it's blood clots in his lungs. So it sounds pretty serious, and I hope it's not as bad as it sounds. But Shane, we're thinking about you, and we wish you well and hope you have a speedy recovery. And we will definitely try to get you back on the show someday. So, everybody think about that and, wish him well. So just wanted to get that out there real quick. So tonight's show is going to be a listener Q&A. And I say listener because the questions came from the Artful iPhoneography community on MeWe. And I think most of those folks all listen to the show. So, we got a few questions here, and Dave and I are going to do our darndest to answer them the best we can. And the first one, it's going to be an easy one to address because Jeff Feeney asked something about finding and entering photo contests and which ones to avoid. So we talked about that, Dave, on episode 25, and you can, folks, you can go back to that episode on your podcast app of choice or on the website, iPhoneography.ca, and give that a listen. And Dave and I kind of give our thoughts on contests and what to watch out for and things like that. So that was a good one there. The next question was from Dwight B. He doesn't provide his full last name, but just Dwight B. And he's asking about the zebra stripes. So, Dave, you've seen these zebra stripes in camera apps before,
right? But not necessarily. They're not in the default camera app, but they're in the third-party ones.
Yeah,
I know.
That's right.
When Howlite has them, I use Camera Plus too. They have the option to turn them on or off, and they can be a little disorientating if you're just playing with different options and all of a sudden you see these bars everywhere on your screen, you're like, I got bars. Why do I have bars? And
and
like,
they're different
what do I do now that I have bars? What do I do with them?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've never seen them before and you accidentally turn it on, it could be extremely confusing. But so Dwight is using Halide, and they have an option where you can turn these on and off. And it's when you're adjusting your exposure manually by sliding your finger up and down on the screen in the viewfinder. And so I tried to find out on Halide's blog what exactly was happening with these zebra stripes. Now, I know that it's got a lot to do with, overexposing or underexposing, and the areas of the image that are clipped. And when I say clipped, I mean, okay, you picture the histogram. I would think that if you're shooting manually, you probably know what a histogram is, and it's that graph where it shows the exposure from the shadows to the highlights or blacks to the whites. And anything that's clipped, it will go up the side of one end or the other. And that means anything beyond that is either pure black or pure white, and it's not being exposed. Excuse me. So when you see, like, say you're bringing up the exposure and you're trying to make your image a little brighter, and then you start seeing these zebra stripes, in halide in particular, when the red and green, okay, so you got RGB, right? You got red, green, blue that makes up an image in digital photography or on screens. And when the red and the green are overexposed, you'll see yellow. And sorry, I had to mute for a sec. I had to cough. Okay. So, but when you see all three channels, so the red, green, and blue are all overexposed, then these stripes turn gray. So if you happen to be shooting raw and you overexpose and you get these zebra stripes, if they're not too far, if there's not too much in the gray, you can recover them when you're processing the image. And I think the same goes for underexposing. Underexposing has, they look a little different. The colors look a little different, but if you underexpose all three channels, again, these stripes turn gray. So it's kind of a good tool to have when you're trying to expose an image. If you're sliding your finger up and down, if you want to keep all the image data in the file, you try to at least avoid getting the gray stripes, or avoid any at all if you can. And one thing that so back in my DSLR days, I was always taught to expose to the right, because it's easier to pull back that image data from the highlights than it is the shadows. And for some reason in mobile photography, and I can only say for the iPhone because I don't use an Android, but in mobile photography, it's easier apparently to recover shadow detail than it is highlight detail. And I kind of tested this a little bit the other night at home here by purposely overexposing and underexposing a raw file and then processing it and seeing which way worked the best. And like an idiot, I can't remember exactly what the results were, but I think I think the image quality was better when I underexposed, because that required a lower ISO. So it was less noise. Does that make sense, Dave?
It kind of does, but also we have to remember that even with quote unquote older phones, there's so much extra processing going on that the DSLRs didn't do. Right. That some of the rules, a lot of the rules are still good, but a lot of them are, if you underexpose it basically, if you overexpose a mobile one, that even if you shoot it in RAW, some of that black is just going to be black, versus, and there are times, and I've seen people with really nice, expensive DSLRs have to do this still. Take two shots, one's overexposed, basically do a manual HDR.
Yeah.
But instead of letting the camera handle it, literally saying, okay, this shot I'm going to do for the foreground, this shot I'm going to do for the background, and then going in, just kind of cutting and pasting them together.
Right.
But at least with the zebra stripes, I know, like I said, Halide is a little more advanced than this with Camera Plus 2, but Camera Plus 2 can say, this is a red area, this is hot, this is a blue area, this is going to be too dark to pick up any details. Yeah. So even if you can't do any, let's say you're stuck and say, okay, I want to do more, but at least I know there's going to be an issue. And since I know there's an issue, can I do anything about it?
Yeah.
Can I do things like take 2 exposures? Can I try HDR? Can I shoot in RAW? Can I try other things? Or will I just know that foreground of the image, which is going to be really dark because the back, further down is much brighter, and there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to have to crop it maybe. Or I'm just going to be happy with the silhouette in front. Now, I think starting with the 10S and going definitely with the 11 and 12, there's so much more dynamic range. The iPhone can, especially with Pro RAW, recover so much more with the new ones.
Yeah.
And they can with the old one, but it's still nice to know. And like I said, it's an optional thing. I don't want to call it only for advanced, because it's something beyond the shoot point and shoot function that iPhone's kind of known for. But it's nice to know, hey, this is a warning area. This is a danger area. You could have issues.
Yeah, and it is. It's a good teacher, for getting to learn the limits of your camera in your phone. Whichever phone you have. Like you say, the older phones don't handle dynamic range as nicely as the new ones, but still, Zebra Stripes it's a pretty good tool to, I would say, to avoid overexposing. Underexposing, I think, is a little easier to deal with, but Dwight, if you're listening, by all means, give it a try. Keep playing around with it and see what kind of results you get. So you want to hit the second one there, Dave? Or sorry, question 3.
Yep. So let me get that here from Kevin Barnett. iPhones and other mobile devices have long ago replaced consumer point-and-shoot cameras and camcorders. And that's something we found. And honestly, kind of making a quick comment before I finish the rest of the question, a lot of, and I think the scary thing is some places actually saw that coming. Like Kodak actually saw that coming. They just, you saw some of the early Kodak stuff. They saw the tidal wave coming, but there's nothing they really could have done to fix it.
No, that's right.
So Kevin goes on, will these devices eventually do the same for enthusiasts and even pro-level interchangeable lens cameras, or are all these markets too small for Apple and others to go after? I don't think it's necessarily, well, it may be I'll put it this way, it may be too small for Apple, because Apple tends to do this is a 90% device for 90% of the people. But I can see Android phones, because they may be able to go niche, a much smaller niche than like when you see an iPhone, because think about it, they don't have that many different iPhones. Right. Even now they have a lot, but it's still, the range is still not as massive as Android, where they could, an Android, remember a couple of years ago, Android, one maker, I think it was Nokia, someone came out with like a 56 megapixel, and I mean, we have chopped this image sensor up so small, we're recombining images like Samsung's done, which is good, but a true 56 megapixel, like low camera, low light thing. So I can see someone trying to do it, but I also think when it comes to, and I'm talking not prosumer, but people who are like, my job that I pay my bills off of is because I take photos.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't your full-time job, it's still your job and you make money off of it. I can't see them going 100% away because physics.
Exactly.
This is a small, the sensor is tiny it's amazing what it can do. The sensor is tiny. The lenses are tiny. The distance you can get from a zoom is tiny.
Yeah.
No matter how good and we've seen some amazing digital zoom technology, but nothing beats optics for the high-end shot. Now, it's going to be a small market, but I really don't think, let's say, a good example is like football, or since we have enough international listeners, American football. I'm a little more familiar with versus what the rest of the world calls football. You see people on the sideline with these massive lenses to get these super close shots.
600 millimeter.
These things are, they have the ones with the tripod for the lens because it's so big. And these are the people who get run over occasionally when players go to the sidelines. So, I see that which these are digital, but they are massive because not only do you need amazing speed to get some of these images, you need that zoom ability without being pixelated and the speed. Because when you get zoom, of course, you lose light coming in, so you need a massive sensor to have your zoom look perfect. Now, again, is it an edge case? Most definitely. But right now, we're seeing for the average person, again, we're talking volume, the average person, yes, a newer phone, 2-3-year-old phone is good enough for a majority of their photography needs. But I don't give an example, Mark Sadowski. I don't see him getting rid of his Fujifilm when he's going to shoot weddings.
No,
because the iPhone still can't match, especially for something where someone's paying you a good amount of money. And wedding photographies, you're paying someone for something that's hopefully, if everything works out, one time, a lifetime thing, but no judgment, but it's a limited time. This isn't, I'm going to a walk on the park today. This is a big deal. So you want someone not just pulling up a phone with a little attachment to get the perfect image, which, again, not degrading what the phones can do, but you sometimes, for your professional, and I'm talking true professional here, you just can't replace that with a phone. So I see a small market. I see it being expensive, but I don't see it being replaced.
No. I'm in a local camera club in the little city here that I live in, and the number of members in the club, and there might be, 30, 35 people in the club, and there's probably only 2 or 3 of us that shoot exclusively with a phone. There's a few of them that shoot with a phone sometimes. Like there's a friend of mine who has a Canon 6D, I think. She has I think she has a 200 millimeter lens, maybe even a 1-400. I'm not sure what all she has for lenses, but she has captured some amazing shots of birds. But when she wants to do a wide angle, like a landscape, the camera flips over by her hip, and she pulls out her iPhone because it's bang. It's a wide angle camera, and that's what she shoots her some landscapes and stuff with, rather than interchange the lenses all the time, or carry 2 camera bodies. So she's happy with how the iPhone shoots a wide angle, like a landscape type of image, and she reserves the the long lens work for her DSLR. So I don't think Apple is going to go after any market, because I'm pretty sure they are quite happy with where they are. The numbers on Flickr are saying that the iPhone is the most popular camera upload on Flickr, and it has been probably since the iPhone 5. Like it's been for years.
I'm even willing to say the 4S possibly.
Yeah, that you could be right. You could be right because it's been the number one camera upload. And I look on Flickr and I look on the Explore page, and I'm looking through some images and just passing some time, getting some inspiration. And most of the ones on the Explore page are from like Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fuji, the big players, right? And once in a while, when you look at the image, sometimes you can just check the information on the image or whatever, and a lot of people will still let the metadata go through, and the odd time you'll see an iPhone image. But I mean, Apple's not gonna. They've obliterated the point and shoot market. Let's put it that way. I think it's a safe assumption, but they're not going to tarnish too badly. I mean, they're barely going to tarnish the DSLR market because you just cannot compare what you get on an iPhone sensor compared to a full frame sensor like on a DSLR. So I think we've pretty much beat that one down.
Yep. And so far, unfortunately, for people expecting fireworks, no fireworks tonight.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. So, all right. So, question 4, again from Kevin Barrett. Have the advancements in computational photography technology plateaued, and folks, we kind of went over these on when we were supposed to record the other night, and before I got another word out of my mouth, Dave said no. So I'll read this again. Have the advancements in computational photography technology plateaued, or are we just scratching the surface with huge capabilities waiting to be unlocked in the not too distant future? So again, no fireworks here, no big disagreements. Dave and I are both on the same page. No way has it plateaued. It's I every year, I said to Dave the other night, every year I can't wait to see and hear what the next iPhone camera is going to be capable of. And every year I say to myself, before I see and hear it, I always say, well, what possibly could they do to make it better? And every year they do something, whether it's deep fusion or smart HDR, all this stuff. I mean, WWDC is coming up within weeks here, and iOS 13 or 15 rather. Sorry, iOS 15 could kind of give us a sneak preview of what the next camera could be capable of. Not necessarily in the keynote, but in the sessions that they put online after that. Sometimes you might catch a little something in little snippets of code that they might show on the screen. And usually it's developers that will see this and they'll put it out on blog posts and stuff. But yeah, Dave, we're not even near done yet, are we?
Oh, no. In fact, if you think about it, we've just started. Because it's only been a couple of years ago that, Diffusion, Pro Raw have been introduced for iPhones. So, I mean, even going back a few years, they still were doing something, I liked what one person said. They said, basically, don't never consider a photo taken out of your phone as unedited. It could be untouched.
Yeah.
Because the phone edits. And that's how we get live photos, because even before you hit the button, you turn on that camera app, it is recording.
Yeah.
So unless you turn live photos off. So when you hit that, it already has a second and a half worth of image, and then it'll do a second and a half afterwards. So if you want to get someone with their eyes open, you can make the adjustment that way. So that's minor stuff like that's been happening. So, and also remember, Apple loves control. The one thing Apple loves more than anything else, it seems, is control.
Yeah.
The sensor, they do not make. The camera they don't make. They work closely with who does, I believe Sony.
Yeah.
But they don't make it themselves.
Yet.
So, well, no, I know what though? I don't see them doing it though, because there's, again, this is physics. There's only so much you can do with lenses and size of sensors. But what they can do control is the image processing, the chip on that.
The pipeline, yeah.
Exactly. Not only the pipeline, but the actual chip that does the processing. Since they are now, I would consider Apple one of the experts with chip design in the world.
Yes.
Who would have thought we would say that a few years ago? But the fact that Apple makes its own chips. So the team that designed the chips for the upcoming iPhone, which is getting ready to hit production, so it's, the design's done. But when they were designing that, they had to work closely together with the screen team, the camera team. The camera team, of course, had to work closely together with the supplier for the camera, so they would know, hey, in 2021, you are going to get a camera that looks like this. Therefore, you're going to write a chip that's able to process it. Therefore, we need to write code for iOS that'll take care of that and take care of the blah, 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 and we got to take it all, and you got to work it all together. And that's where Apple has its advantage. But also remember, when they came out with, being able to take night photos, being able to take the deep fusion, that was software. That was a little bit of hardware. But the hardware and the camera for Apple is not leaps and bounds above everyone else. It's the software working with the hardware, working with the operating system, working with the chip processing. That all works together. And that's why they can come out and say, oh, by the way, surprise, look what we're going to come out with in the new version of the operating system. You're going to be able to take photos. Boom. So who knows what they're going to come out with next? I don't know. I mean, it's admittedly, night photography is going to get better. Okay.
I will make a prediction.
Mark this down.
I think they are going to, I'll try to put it in the simplest way possible. I think they're going to introduce, and it's probably only going to be a feature on the next iPhone. Even the 12 Pro phones probably won't be able to do it. Maybe, I don't know. But I think what they're going to do is they're going to introduce portrait mode video. And it's going to be seamless. Because when portrait mode came out, the team at Focus, Focos, those guys had basically portrait mode before Apple did. And I think when Apple introduced portrait mode with the iPhone 7 Plus, these guys probably thought, oh, great. Now we're done. Like, now what? they basically, what do they call it? They call it sandboxing, I think. Well, the team at Focus for a couple of years now.
I would say just because I got probably some old time Apple people, Sherlocking.
Sherlocking, that's the word.
Sherlocking, because there was the old Sherlock app that people loved, and then Apple said, hey, look what we can do with the Finder, and everyone was like, you just killed that app, didn't you?
Yeah, Sherlocking, that's the word I meant to say. Thanks, Dave. But so the guys on the Focus team, they've brought out portrait mode video, and it's been out publicly for probably a year or so now, and it's not bad. I mean, it's a little better with the LiDAR sensor, but I'm thinking, okay, so the LiDAR sensor on the 12 Pros, and I'm not sure about the iPad Pro that has that it came out a year before, but the LiDAR sensor has a very small array of dots that it projects.
Right.
It's only like so many by so many, and it's not a huge number. But I suspect that they're going to make that a lot more like they're going to really fine tune it, make it more high resolution, where it'll do a really, really good job with segmentation and all that stuff. And then with the who knows what kind of chipset they're going to put in with the A15. I imagine they'll be able to do portrait mode video very, very well. That's my that's my guess. And it's going to be the feature that they say coming later this fall. It's not going to be released with the iPhone 13 or whatever they're going to call it.
That makes sense. It's going to be it's going to be the 0.1 release like they did with portrait mode and with
and Pro
the
Raw.
Deep Fusion.
Yeah.
And that too. Yeah.
It seems like every year they have that one feature that they wait for a 0.1 release to put it out there. So that's my prediction.
Makes sense. Which honestly makes sense because there's only so much testing you can do in private, and they love that. They still love that aha moment. You know? Yeah. And so, there's only because you can put that in the operating system and someone will find it.
Well, see, and that takes me back to what I said earlier about the WWDC sessions. Sometimes you'll get a developer who's pretty good at picking up what's in the code, and he'll see something that they talk about. Maybe they'll show a snippet of code on the screen, or they may even discuss it. I don't know, but sometimes you'll see stuff that is a hint at what the next phone could be capable of doing. So if they put it in the beta before iOS 15 comes out, excuse me. I'm off the beta now. Like I usually go on the beta just because I can't wait to try stuff out. But I'm off the beta. I'm back on public release now, and I wouldn't put the beta of iOS 15 on until like a few versions in. But if that feature goes on the beta, I would be tempted to put it on again just to try it. Because, like I said, I got to try these things early. I can't wait. But anyway, so basically,
also,
yeah.
To springboard off of what you were saying about Dub coming up, anyone can download the developer's app.
Oh yeah,
and view and you can actually view all the past WWDC. And we're talking, 40, 50 hour-long minute videos that go heavy into detail, that if you're not a coder, your eyes will glaze over because you don't you can't follow it because you're not a coder, which is okay.
That's right.
But back in, like here, I pulled it up for the camera, WWDC 19 doing the multi-camera capture.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I could see to give an example for the wrestling show I'm going to go to tomorrow night. If someone wanted to use that to record, let's say, an announcer, even though there won't be announcers, it's a really small show. But if you had an announcer, you could record the announcer's reaction and the action in the ring at the same time.
Yeah.
So you could see where that would be a huge help, or even a reporter per se, but the photo segment map differences that happened, so you can look at and you can review all of these, and this is at no cost because Apple wants people to develop for the platform, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So they want to make that as seamless as possible.
Yeah. And if you're, even remotely interested in some of this stuff, and don't mind listening to stuff that you probably won't understand, because I know I listen to it and I don't get a lot of it. Like I don't get most of it, to be honest with you. But sometimes I'll just listen to it just to see what they're saying and see if there's anything I can pick up from it. But yeah, just give that app a try and see what you can find. So, but I think we can pretty much say that we haven't seen it all yet by any means.
Oh, no. I think we're starting to scratch the surface. There's going to be a lot of changes happening. So,
yeah,
it's going to get wild. I think it's going to get wild, and I think they are going to overstep the bounds and try to do too much. or overpromise and say, with the amazing new blah, blah, blah learning, you can do this. And then you learn, well, it was shot on an iPhone, but you had a gimbal. It was perfect light. You had a professional setup. You had this, you had this, you had this. Yeah, physically you can do it, but in reality, probably not.
Yeah. And, here's another point. Android has really come a long way with their camera systems.
Yeah.
And I say that not to shoot them down, because back when the iPhone 4 came out, that's when mobile photography changed for the better. The Android phones of that day, I don't think were there yet, but they have sure as heck caught up. And the Samsung S21 Ultra camera system is iPhone has out now in the 12 Pro Max. I mean, they are okay. So here's one for you on the. So Shane Mostyn, who I mentioned earlier, he has a Facebook page for people who follow his videos and stuff. Somebody put two pictures on there of a dog sleeping, and it was kind of dark, so I think night mode kicked in. They put one on from a 12 Pro Max and the S21 Ultra, and he said, okay, see if you can pick which one's which. And I looked at these pictures, and I studied them, and I thought that the one that had better detail, like where deep fusion would kick in, there was one that had a little better, crisper detail than the other one. So I thought for sure that was the iPhone one. I was wrong. Yeah. And I'm not surprised, because I've watched comparison videos on YouTube before where they say, okay, we're testing, 2 or 3 different cameras, and, one's an iPhone, one's a Samsung, and one's like, say, the Google Pixel or whatever. And, you got to pick which one's which, and you go through them, and I bet you half the time I get them wrong, if not more, because these cameras are just coming up so much better. So that's another reason why the computational photography has not plateaued, because they're always going to try to outdo their competition.
Yeah.
So let's just. Oh, I can't wait to see what comes out next. So the last question is from Paul Duncan. Not sure I've found the optimal approach to editing Pro Raw. Is there a particular app that does it better than the rest? I'm just editing as I did with RAW. Am I missing a trick? So you're not a real RAW shooter, are you, Dave?
I am not.
No, okay.
I don't, and I don't have, my camera can't do Pro. My phone can't do Pro RAW.
Right. Okay. So Pro RAW, just to recap real quick, is basically like a raw DNG file, but it has some of what I call Apple's secret sauce baked in, like the deep fusion. You can actually do a night mode shot in Pro Raw. You can do a portrait mode shot in Pro Raw. It has some of these, treatments done to the file, in addition to the fact that it's a raw file. So when Pro Raw first came out, there was only a couple of apps that could process it. Over and above the Photos app on your phone or your Mac. So what Pro Raw has over a regular DNG file is a local tone mapping layer. And most apps couldn't see that at the beginning. One of the apps that was able to see it was called Raw Power. And it's developed by some guys who used to work on the Aperture app on the Mac at Apple. So this local tone mapping layer, when you go into process your file, when you go into the raw section, local tone mapping is probably going to be the first slider you see, and it's going to be all the way to the right. You can slide that to the left, and if you took it all the way to the left, you're basically turning that layer off, and you're going to be left with just your regular DNG file, what it would look like if you didn't have Pro Raw. So, and what I've noticed in anything I've shot with it is it tends to be a little darker. The Apple Pro Raw, the secret sauce stuff, it tends to brighten the image up, give you a better exposure, end result, let's say, and sharpness and all that stuff, noise reduction, all that stuff that the Apple camera can do for a JPEG or a high efficiency file. So to answer Paul's question, I think what he may be missing is possibly an app that doesn't do ProRAW, or if it does do ProRAW, he's I don't know, maybe he needs to try that local tone mapping slider. But so he asked, is there a particular app that does it better than the rest? Well, in photos, right on the iPhone, you can't go wrong because it does the ProRAW files. But if you want to try other apps, Paul, I would try ProRAW. Darkroom does ProRAWs nicely. Lightroom Mobile, but you have to have the subscription. I believe there's one that you can use just for mobile that's like $5 or $6 a month, just to be able to do RAW files on your phone. But if you're a big Lightroom Photoshop user, you may already have the Creative Cloud thing. But so Lightroom Mobile is a maybe. It depends on if you're going to pay for it or not. But other than that, excuse me. Oh gosh, I don't know how many apps on my phone, but as far as doing ProRAW, the one I use the most is Raw Power. Just because I like the way that it has other features in it. Like they have a Gentleman Coders is the guys that do that app, and you can find them on YouTube, and they have some tutorials on there about developing raw files shot on your phone. And there's one slider called Boost, and I think if you move that slider, I think it brings out the shadow detail, and then on another page through the process, there's one called Recovery, and that brings back the detail in the highlights. So it's like we were talking about earlier, the zebra stripes or the clipping. If it's too dark, you can boost it. You look at your histogram while you're doing that. You can see when the information comes back into the off the sides or back into the image data. So ProRAW can be a tricky thing sometimes, and I would say I wouldn't even say I've found the optimal approach to editing ProRAW myself, other than using Raw Power. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm an authority on it, but it does really well for what I need it to do. And even the Photos app itself is really good at editing a ProRAW file. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Paul. If not, hit me up in the community chat at MeWe, and we'll definitely dig into it some more. But that's about the best I can think of for editing ProRAW. So I think we've done all right with these, Dave. Mm-hmm. We didn't get into fisticuffs or anything, so that's always a good thing.
Not yet.
Yeah. So you want to tell folks what we got planned coming up for some future episodes here?
Sure. We're going to look a little bit, into macro. Just in terms of what you can do probably with and without lenses. Mm-hmm. Just because when you do macro, it's still, even if you quote unquote bad macro. I remember doing macro when I had my 4S, using Camera Plus 2, and some the shots and the perspective you can get by getting that close is just amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I'll also say I was looking at the calendar because May's kind of snuck up on me here.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
You figure our next show is going to be around the 24th, and then the next show after that is June 7th, which is also the first day of WWDC.
Ooh.
So it's like, surprise! It's the 7th. Yeah, I was checking the developers app and just making sure. But yeah, the 7th is the first day of Dub.
Oh,
so we are less than a month away.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, well, like I said, May kind of, at least for us, we had a kind of warm April, and one day in May that was hot. The second,
yeah.
But other than that, we've been cold. Like,
we have been too.
Like furnace kick on cold.
Yeah, same here.
Not happy mid-May and furnace kicking on. I thought we were done with that stupid stuff. But so it's kind of like, no, at least in the US, Memorial Day is in 2 weeks. Is in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or just over 2. I should say just over 2 weeks. So it's like, oh yeah, that's like beginnings. Unofficial beginning of summer. The pools open up.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's really soon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, yeah. So, well, we're going to touch on macro, and then in the weeks to follow that, and whether we hit these every week or every show or not, it just depends on what's going on. But we're also going to dive into the wide camera, the telephoto camera, and the ultra wide camera, and ways to use those cameras for good shots or whatever. Just we'll try to pardon the pun, but focus on the best ways to utilize those cameras. So look for that coming up in the future, and I think we have ourselves a show.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter as ProfPod. I did finally join the group on MeWe. So I'm listed there. Yeah, thank you. I'm listed there under my name, Dave Podner. I did post my first pic. A photo I did of downtown Pittsburgh, one of the skyscrapers there. And I had a few people in other places I posted compared either to the Ghostbusters scene, from the first movie with Gozer, or the skyscraper from Die Hard, the first one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good shot. That was a lot of drama in the clouds and stuff. So
yeah. You know what? It just seems like, and this is one thing I like with Polar, is that I set up the sliders and everything how I liked it, and it's just the way the cloudy skies are and everything else. It just, and I would say a lot. One thing that's nice about downtown Pittsburgh is they still have some, even though this shot isn't an older building. Well,
yeah.
And I hate to say, and this is something I thought about, is like, we have to kind of, at least in my mind, redefine what older building is.
Yeah.
Because this building was built in the early 80s. So it's coming close to 40 years old.
Yeah.
Even though it's very clean and modern. And some of the other buildings around it are even newer. Some are very old. Some are very, very old. But like the big, and then I'll come back in a second from the tangent here. But the big building here in Pittsburgh is the U.S. Steel building. If you've ever seen pictures of Pittsburgh, it's the big black thing, the big black triangle building downtown.
Oh, okay,
the tall one. That was built in 1970. So that's getting to a 50-year-old structure. And then you think back, well, how old? If a building was 50 years old in 1970, well, that would be something built in 1920.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, well, in 1970, if you saw a building from 50 years, you would say that's a very old building. It was built 1920. We're 1970. Look at the huge difference.
Yeah.
But now you look at the building and think, oh, yeah, it's been there a while, but this isn't an ancient building. It's only 50 years old. which I'm sure changes if you actually work in it. You have to deal with all the, infrastructure and HVAC and everything else that was built and designed in the late 60s versus now. But
yeah.
But you can find me there and on MeWe and on Facebook. If you're part of the iPhoneography group, I'm also listed as Dave Podner Jr.
Alrighty. You can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, on Twitter, Macmillan_photo, and just about everywhere else. If you want to find my online presence, you can find me. Look at about.me/Macmillan. And so we try to do the show every 2 weeks, and you can find the podcast at iPhoneography.ca. You can find it on the Apple Podcast app, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, just about anywhere else where you can get your podcast, hopefully. And just do a search for iPhoneography, and it should show up. You can find the Artful iPhoneography community, as we mentioned, that on MeWe. And you can get there by going to artfulipc.club. And we have, I think we have over 80 members now. And as the host of the community, I know I haven't been doing a great job at keeping things going, like with weekly challenges and things like that. But I am going to, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm going to try my darndest to keep things going at a more regularly scheduled pace. So I think I just put a Throwback Thursday challenge on there. And I forget what it was. It is horizon lines. So show us older pictures from your archives that have a nice horizon line on it, whether it's high, low, medium, whatever. But just a nice horizon line, and just share what you got. I guess that's it. We will be recording again, like Dave said, on the 24th. Now that's the long weekend for you, is it, Dave?
No, the next weekend is.
Oh, okay.
The 31st. Yeah, the 31st.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So nothing big planned for that night for you guys in the States. It is a long weekend for us here in Canada, but I don't do anything anyway. So we will be recording on the 24th as scheduled, and we'll just try to come up with something to talk about with macro and whatever else we could find. So thanks, Dave, and we will see you on the next one.
Have a great week, everyone.
Bye-bye.